Hello everyone, hope you're doing well, and today we are going to discuss on Active Directory group nesting and group nesting best practices. So let's see what we have today. Today we'll understand the Active Directory group types and group scopes. We have already covered it in the earlier part of the video. We'll see what is group nesting, best practices for group nesting, and advantages of group nesting, and the last but not the least, risks involved in nested groups. So let's get started. So Active Directory group types and group scopes, we have already discussed this topic in our earlier video. So group types in Active Directory, there are two types of groups in Active Directory, namely security group and a distribution group, and we have three types of scope for each group type in Active Directory, namely domain local, global, and universal. So we have two types of groups, security, distribution, and three scopes for each type of group, that is domain local, global, and universal. Now, what is group nesting all about? So adding a group as a member of another group is called as group nesting. Group nesting in Active Directory is a process of planting one group inside another group. So Active Directory nested groups inherit all the permissions and privileges of the groups that they are planted in. So there is an inheritance. And it is important to note that not all groups can be nested into one another, because it depends on type of group and the scope of that particular group. So let's take an example over here. We have a folder, shared folder named sales data, and we need to give modify permissions to few users from our New York office and from our Florida office on the sales data folder. So we'll use group nesting over here to grant the permissions. So first we'll create a domain local, a security group with domain local scope, sales data underscore modify. We'll create one more group. This time we'll create a global group, New York sales modify, and add all the users who want to access sales data folder from New York office. We'll create one more global group, Florida sales modify, and we will add the users from our Florida office who want to access the sales data folder. Now we will go ahead and nest the group. So we will add New York sales modify group as a member of sales data modify domain local group, and same thing we will also add Florida sales modify group as a member of sales data modify domain local group. And last but not the least, we will go ahead and grant sales data modify domain local group modify permissions on the sales data folder. So we have nested New York sales modify and Florida sales modify, both the groups under sales data modify. Now if tomorrow you want to revoke access for one of the users, so simply remove the user from that particular group. For example, Philip. So you want to remove access or revoke the access on sales data folder for Philip. So simply remove him from the group and he won't have access anymore. So you don't need to change the entire structure. So let us understand the group group nesting best practices. So one of the best practices is called as IGDLA, or earlier it was called as AGDLP. So let us look at what is IGDLA or AGDLP. So the best practices for group nesting is also known as, say, IGDLA, also known as AGDLP. So IGDLA stands for, I stands for identities, that is users, computers, etc. That is accounts. G stands for global groups. DL stands for domain local group, and A stands for access or permissions. So that is AGDLP, account, global group, domain local group and permissions, or identity, global group, domain local and access. So what happens is, accounts, that is users or computers, they go to global group. So we make these users and computers member of a global group. Then these global groups are made a member of domain local group, and we assign permissions on domain local group. So we have seen this in our earlier video that the main purpose of domain local group is to assign permissions on the local resources. So this strategy is called as IGDLA or AGDLP. So let's take an example over here. Or let's say identity can be user, computer, account, and are added as a member of global group that represents business roles. So the identities will definitely represent a business role. Then these global groups are then added to domain local group. Access or permissions are then granted on the domain local group, and domain local group represent management rules determining who has read, write, modify or full permissions to specific resources. Resources can be, say, folder, printer, anything, or even a server. So let us take an example of, say, AGDLP or IGDLA and how it works in the same domain, how to use this best practice of group nesting in the same domain. So we'll create a global group, add users as a member of global group, create a domain local group, add that particular global group as a member of domain local group, and grant permissions to domain local group. Now the permissions can be read, write, modify, full, etc. So let's take a scenario. The scenario is we need to grant read-only permissions to 3 users on sales data folder. And these 3 users and the shared data folder are in the same contoso.com domain. So this is the scenario somewhat. So these are the 3 users who want to access sales data folder, and permissions should be read only. So how to accomplish this task? So we will use one of the best strategies, that is AGDLP or IGDLA. So first we'll create a global group, let's say sales underscore users underscore read only or RO. So we'll create a group, then we add these accounts or these identities as a member of that particular global group. So IG, so identities are added as a member of global group. Then we'll create a domain local group now. Sales folder access underscore read only. And the next step would be to add this global group as a member of domain local group. So now we have performed group nesting over here. So we have nested sales user read only group to sales folder access read only. Then we'll grant read only permissions on say to this sales folder access read only group on the sales data folder, and then these users will be able to access this particular folder. So this strategy is called as AGDLP or IGDLA. So the identities goes to say global group, then again goes to domain local, and permissions are assigned or access is given to the domain local group. This strategy is called as IGDLA or AGDLP. Now let us see one more example, but this time in a different domain. Now we have two domains, contoso.com and east.contoso.com. We have a folder named HR data in east.contoso.com, and we have three users, Martha, Gloria and Amanda, who wants to access this HR data folder. So we will follow the same strategy over here, IGDLA or AGDLP, the best practice. So we'll create a group named Contoso HR in contoso.com domain. The group type will be security. The group scope will be global. And then we'll add Martha, Gloria and Amanda as a member of this particular Contoso HR global group. Then we'll create a group name HR in east.contoso.com. Group type will be security and group scope will be domain local. And then we will nest Contoso HR in HR group. So now Contoso HR is the member of HR group, which is on east.contoso.com, and then we'll give whatever permissions on this folder HR data to the group HR, that is domain local, and then Martha, Gloria and Amanda will be able to access HR data folder. So the same thing works in say cross domain as well, or multiple domains, in single domain as well as multiple domain. And again, this strategy is also called as IGDLA or AGDLP. Now let's look at one more best practices, that is this time IGUDLA or AGUDLP. So we are introducing universal scope over here. So the best practices for group nesting known as IGUDLA or AGUDLP. So again, I stands for identities, users, computers, accounts. G stands for global group. U stands for universal group. DL stands for domain local group, and A stands for access or permissions. So again, accounts will be the member of global group. Global group will be the member of universal group. Now universal groups will be the member of domain local group, and we will assign permissions or access will be granted to domain local group. Now universal security groups are most often used to assign permissions to say related resources in multiple domains. So this is the say main use of universal groups, and as we know that universal groups are also published in our global catalog. So let's take an example over here. So we have a domain and a forest. Contoso.com is a forest, and we have three domains in contoso.com: nwtraders.net, contoso.com and fabricam.com. Now there are a couple of users. Let's say we have three users in nwtraders.net: Peter, Alex, Amanda. Three users in contoso.com: Bill, Jose and Martin. And in Fabricam we have four users: Sylvia, Brian, Robin and Joshua. And we have two shared folders, one in nwtraders.net, that is HR reports, and we have in Fabricam we have HR data. Now the request is all the 10 users should have access on both the folders. Okay, so how will we achieve this task? So all the 10 users must have access on HR reports, which is in nwtraders.net, and all the 10 users must have, say, access to HR data, which is in fabricam.com. So what we'll do is we will create global groups in every domain, and then we will add the respective users in their respective global groups. For example, we will add Peter, Alex and Amanda in the global group which we created in nwtraders.net. We will add Bill, Jose and Martin in the global group which we created in contoso.com, and same thing goes with fabricam.com. Then we'll create a universal group in contoso.com, and we will also create domain local groups, this time only in nwtraders.net and fabricam.com, because the resources are present in these two domains. So let's see how we grant the access now. So step number 1, add the users to their respective global groups. Add all the global groups as a member of universal group which is present in contoso.com. So we will add all the global groups as a member of single universal group in contoso.com. Now we will add the universal group as a member of domain local group in nwtraders.net, and we'll add the same universal group as a member of domain local group in fabricam.com now. So this universal group is the member of domain local group in nwtraders.net as well as fabricam.com. And last but not the least, we will say configure permissions. So we'll grant permissions on HR reports folder to domain local group in the nwtraders.net, and we'll grant permissions on the HR data folder on the domain local group in fabricam.com. So in this complete transaction or this manner, all the users will be able to access both the folders in different domain. And this strategy is called as AGU-DLP or IGU-DLA. So let us look at some advantages of group nesting. Nesting helps you better manage and administer your environment based on business roles, functions, and management rules. The nesting of groups enables the creation of hierarchical relationships that can be used to define inherited group membership. Active Directory nested groups inherit all the permissions and privileges of the group that they are planted in. Group nesting in Active Directory simplifies network management for administrators. It enables them to assign access rights and permissions to resources within the domain and across. It's very easy. Okay, so there are some risks as well. So let's talk about the risks involved in group nesting. So group nesting can also go out of control if not managed correctly, creating a wild mess in the Active Directory. Now, for large organizations, the massive number of groups and group nesting may result in losing grip on who has access to what. So ironically, the exact reason we are nesting groups in the first place, man. So in large organizations, there are thousands and thousands of groups, and we just go on nesting the groups, and we are just losing the grip if we don't manage it in a proper way. So quite often, some users need access to the resources on, say, temporary basis, and after that task is accomplished, access should be revoked immediately for security reasons. However, due to the complexity of nested groups, the IT department is usually reluctant to make such changes in the directory. So the IT department gives temporary access to the users, and because of the complexity of group nesting, they don't revoke it after the task is completed. Now, such negligence of duties can become insider threats, okay, to the organization, resulting in the loss of crucial data and information. So let's look at the summary, what we have covered so far. So we covered Active Directory group types and group scope. We looked at what is group nesting best practices, advantages of group nesting, and some of the risks involved in nested groups. Thanks for joining. If you think this channel is helping you to learn anything new, please subscribe and share this video with your technical community, and enjoy your day.